Okay, hi. So can you begin by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your background so far?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm Devanshi Tomar, and I graduated from Westview High School in San Diego last summer. I'm a freshman at UC Santa Barbara, where I'm double majoring in psych and brain sciences and anthropology with a biological emphasis. So I have kind of a simultaneous interest in STEM and the humanities, which has come together into a sort of ambition to pursue medicine and public health as a career.
That's really interesting. So to begin with, like what colleges were you accepted into and why did you decide to choose UC Santa Barbara?
I was accepted, let me try to remember, into Northwestern, Wellesley, Boston University, various UCs, but I landed on UC Santa Barbara because I love the location and I couldn't imagine not being next to the beach for the next 4 years because I live in San Diego, but more importantly because of the reputation that it carries, the incredible research that they're doing there, particularly in neuroscience, macular degeneration, biological anthropology, um, and I knew that I wanted to be a small fish in a big pond so that I could grow to become an even bigger fish in a big pond. So the big public school aspect of UCSB appealed to me as well.
Sounds cool. So in high school, what activities were you involved in and how did that kind of shape your career or your college interests?
In high school, I was an English tutor, the editor-in-chief of my high school's newspaper, and the president of the mock trial team. So because of my involvement in the newspaper and in mock trial, I also went to different competitions where I won awards there. And I think that all of these things made me very interested in how I can incorporate writing in whatever my future would be. And also public speaking, informing others. I guess those are aspects that are pretty prevalent in both mock trial and the newspaper. I always like to think that as a tutor, I was helping other people bring out their voice. In mock trial, I was using my voice to advocate for other people. And in journalism, I was helping to uplift the voices of others. So that's what I wanted to do no matter what career I went into. I wanted to be able to do those three things in my future.
That's really cool. And I really like how you're always involved in helping other people in some way or another. So you were the president of the mock trial team. Do you have any tips for students who are part of mock trial or just other public speaking events?
So many. I think the biggest thing is practice, 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 but not too much practice. I think practicing your scripts to the extent that you know them like the back of your hand and you're able to sound natural, collected, conversational when you recite your script. Being able to work collaboratively, whether it's mock trial or any public speaking, discussing cases with your teammates, developing reasoning to support or rebut your theories about the case or whatever you're discussing, speaking clearly, loudly, knowing your facts. For mock trials specifically, if you're a witness, being able to schedule time with your attorney to rehearse your scripts is super, super important. And also understanding the roles of people on your team who may not have the same role as you. I think that can help you understand your role and what you need to do to help other people succeed as well. Let me think. I'm just going to recite like all of my spiel for mock trial when I was helping people prepare. Considering a personality for witnesses, one that fits with your statement, and the background information that's derived from the witness statement. Making sure that your showmanship, things that have to do with rhetoric, doesn't overshadow the content of what you're saying. In fact, it should supplement and amplify the things that you're saying, personify your character, and therefore add to your credibility. I hope that suffices.
Yeah, that was a lot of very interesting tips. I think some of it may have gone a little bit over my head because I'm not that involved in law or mock trial, but I think for the people who are, it was probably very helpful. I know you did a lot of different activities in high school. What was your favorite or like you were the most excited to spend time on?
I think being part of the school newspaper was the most interesting because writing articles, you can choose any sort of topic that fascinates you. You have the opportunity to be inspired by the people that you interview, that you write about. You also get to work with computers and develop your design skills. You work with other people. You get to develop how you respond to constructive criticism. So a lot of the skills that I have now, I think, and also apply to the other things I did, like tutoring or mock trial, I think I can trace them back to my participation in the newspaper. And when I became editor-in-chief, it also helped my ability to lead others and kind of guide them towards conclusions instead of making it for them. Because, I mean, you can't have an interesting newspaper if everybody writes the same and if everyone edits the same and design the same. So trying to bring out people's individual skills and talents was probably the most fun that I had doing, and also the most repurposeful when it came to doing the same things when I was tutoring people to better themselves in writing, or when I was helping people in mock trial to bring out the traits in them that can add to their overall personality and their composure as an attorney or a witness. I think that was, I think, the most worthwhile thing that I did in high school was be a part of the school newspaper.
That's amazing. So, as a sort of contrast, you grew up in the Bay Area and then you attended high school in San Diego. So, how different was the culture? I know as someone from the Bay Area, there's a lot of emphasis on like grades are important and everyone needs to have like a good GPA and be taking lots of AP. So, was that kind of similar in San Diego, or did the culture differ a lot?
It's interesting because even though I grew up in the Bay Area, I lived in a pocket, I think, where things weren't so competitive at my high school during ninth grade. I was still highly involved in my studies and extracurriculars, but when I moved to San Diego and enrolled in Westview High School, I think that I did experience a sort of culture shock because it was extremely competitive among the students, but also because the teachers and administration were a lot more invested in student success and college preparation than at Granada. So I think it was kind of flipped for me. But I think, though, because I had experience in kind of the two opposite spectrums of academic culture, I was able to maintain a better balance than some of my peers because I understood the importance of remaining focused and determined, and I understood the importance of maintaining your GPA and things like that. But I also knew when to take breaks, to have fun, to take time to explore my interests that may not be academically fueled. So I think that was really valuable for me.
I think that's something that a lot of people are definitely need to focus on, especially in these
Yeah,
like super competitive regions. So in
yeah.
high school, like what were you involved in, I guess, outside of your regular schoolwork? So like what summer programs or extracurriculars did you pursue outside of school?
Mhm. I didn't attend any particular summer programs, but I spent my summers doing SAT prep or preparing and designing the following year's newspaper. Or the summer before my senior year, I shadowed a doctor, a psychiatrist that I knew to gain more knowledge of the medical field. I was always highly, highly booked during the academic year, especially my junior and senior year because of the leadership roles I took on. I would stay after school every day, usually around 5 to 6 p.m. Latest would be around 8 p.m. So I took the summers as a way to explore my interests in my career, to prepare for the following year, to kind of experience unstructured time where I could educate myself by going to the library or taking online courses. I do think though that there is benefit to a summer program, not necessarily because of its structure, but because it shows colleges that you are productive with your time and that you are actively exploring your interests, that you're invested in your future. And it doesn't have to be a summer program. It could be a community service project, it could be a research camp. There's an infinite number of things that you could do during your summers, I think. The important thing is to not do nothing during your summers. As for courses and APs, I tried to take kind of a balance between advanced courses in English and in science and math. So I took AP Psych, Honors Humanities, which was the honors English class for 10th grade, AP Euro, AP Bio, AP Calc, AP Lang, AP Lit. You can kind of see the theme of both humanities and sciences. So yeah.
Definitely a lot of APs. So I think you mentioned when you're talking about your summer that you shadowed a psychiatrist. What was that like? That sounds like something that not a lot of people get to do, but it seems like it would be really interesting.
It was really interesting because I think shadowing professionals is more of a thing that you do in college, to my knowledge. So to be able to do it in high school, I was just observing the patient interactions that the psychiatrist had. I saw basically her day-to-day structure, how she would check in, how she would interact with patients. And it was really interesting to see, because I think the interesting thing is I had taken it after I had taken AP Psych. I shadowed her. And so I got to see like the real life applications of what I was studying. And mental health and mental disorders are, like being able to identify them is a lot more nuanced. So having to recall my knowledge from AP Psych and AP Bio to some extent and apply it to what she was talking about, being able to walk her through like why she gave this certain person medication for this issue or otherwise, and kind of seeing how she interacts with patients and how she modulated to different people, which is something that I did in dozens of other extracurriculars that didn't have to do with science, was really, really interesting for me. I think a very, very valuable experience.
I think that's definitely something that really helps you shape kind of what you want to do in the future. So I know that you were debating between the law from all of your experience in like mock trial and the medicine field. So what made you choose one over the other? And did like this shadowing and experiencing what a real career in that field would be like, how did that kind of help your decision?
So I was debating between the law and medicine field because of my involvement, like you said, with things that were highly writing based and speaking based activities like newspaper or, as you said, mock trial. I thought that the field of law catered to my skills and my interests, and I've always known that I wanted to have an impact on people's lives. But that desire to do that kind of refined into wanting to change as well the systems that govern people's lives. So social justice and law reform were two of my ambitions, and they still are. What hasn't changed are my ambitions. I still want to be able to make structural change in America's system, and I do believe that the way these systems are built tend to actively go against the interests and well-being of several of America's demographics. What has changed, though, is my perception, and that was the perception that I had to choose either or. Going into the field of medicine means that I can deeply learn the subjects that interest me, like human biology, illnesses, medical ethics, but I can apply that knowledge of those subjects to so many different areas in the medical field. Healthcare is one of those systems that has led to the oppression and therefore lesser care of several demographics. There's a lot of implicit biases in medicine. Like, for example, half of white medical students are taught that Black people have thicker skin and therefore less nerve endings than white people. Teachings like that perpetuate that bias when those medical students go on to treat patients. And there are so many stories of people of color, including Indians, having their pain and symptoms downplayed or dismissed. And they eventually died because of inattention and those biases. And so if I become a doctor, I can make changes at the microcosmic level by being aware of these biases and being present for the patient. But there's also no rule that says I can't become a doctor and also go into government. There's no rule that says I can't become a doctor and also go into education. No rule that says I can't be a doctor and also become a leader in public health. So what made me decide to go into the field of medicine is that I stopped seeing my interests and ambitions as opposing. I started thinking of ways that I could combine and interweave them. And I think that will lead, I hope, to a much more fulfilling life. It's why and I'm reluctant to say this because I'm only the first year, but it's why I'm pursuing that double major in psych and brain sciences and also biological anthropology.
That's definitely really interesting, I think, especially with a lot of the issues that are being brought to light recently. Like, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I think it's really admirable of you to try and work towards fixing it, even if it's just you trying to do it. So what do you suggest for people who like have multiple interests that are not necessarily always like can be mixed together? So I think law and medicine are usually kind of separate fields. So, and I imagine that choosing one over the other is probably a difficult decision. So what do you suggest to other high schoolers who are trying to pick their career and don't really know what direction to go in?
I think the important thing is high school is about finding your interests and finding some vague application of them after high school and college. But when it comes to high school, if you are confused about what you want to do as a career, there's no pressure to solidify that in 10th or 11th grade. Focus on what your passions are, what your interests are, and think about what majors that you can do in college, because you have a lot of time to find out what you want to do as a career. There's no pressure to do it in high school. In college, I think you have even more opportunities to do research, to take concentrated classes in the subjects that you're interested in, and the applications of the knowledge that you are acquiring now are going to change in the next 5 to 7 years, let alone 15 years. So I think the best thing is not taking so much pressure to find a career. It's going to eventually work out in the end. I think I wish that I had known that earlier, because I spent a lot of time worrying about what I was going to do as a career, when really I didn't need to, because once I got to college, I would be able to solidify that by taking classes that actually had to do with my career, instead of just focusing on what I was passionate about, what I was interested in, and then just letting everything flow afterwards.
I think that's definitely good advice. I think a lot of high schools and maybe just peer pressure make students kind of feel like they need to know what they want to do as soon as they enter high school, even though they have a long time to figure it out still.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know that you had a lot of different activities and experiences in high school. And if you could change anything about it, whether it would be like involve yourself in a different extracurricular or attend a summer program, what would it be?
I wish I could have come to the conclusion that I was just talking about a lot sooner. Then I could spend more time getting involved in research, especially because UCSD offers high school research positions, or volunteering and shadowing at the hospital. I don't think I would take back the hours I spent in the press room or mock trial meetings, but as I look ahead at the future that I'm planning for myself, I feel a lot less confident pursuing opportunities in STEM than I do in the humanities. I'm not going to let it stop me though, but yeah, I think also one has to remember that high school is a time to explore. I think that's what I was just talking about. There's so much time in college to nail down career experience and focused opportunities. And in high school, you're just a kid. You can let your interests float and your mind wander. You're allowed to remain curious and childlike in that curiosity. And I think that's what colleges want, somebody who is moldable and open-minded and eager to learn and eager to explore, someone who will take advantage of the opportunities made available to them at the university or college that they go to. Passion and drive is what they want. They don't particularly want a mini software engineer, but if that mini engineer is doing it because he's chasing what he's passionate about and he's satiating some desire to learn about software and coding and science at large, then he will be very successful in the college admissions journey. But like we were just talking about, there's no pressure to know what you want to do in 15 years. You just have to know what interests you, and like everything else will, I think, fall into place.
I think that's definitely great advice and something that a lot of people forget sometimes, and they're so caught up in trying to make their application seem as like well-rounded and perfect as they can be, even though that's not necessarily what they need to do. So from your high school and college application experience, like what is one piece of advice you would give to high schoolers who are either like currently applying to colleges? I know that's currently going on for a lot of seniors, or just doing their like daily classes and whatever.
Stop worrying about if you're going to get into college. You will get into college. I wish I stopped worrying about getting into college sooner, especially because my senior year was cut so short. During my senior year, after I turned all of those applications in, there was this period of time where I had no idea where I was going to go to college, and I had nothing else that I could do to get into college. I was just doing things to do them. I could actually delve into what I was passionate about and activities and lead my organizations without the worry of, man, how am I going to write about this in an essay? I wish I could have felt like that sooner. I don't think it affected my application necessarily, because I was already highly passionate about everything I was involved in and highly aware of how they shaped me as a person. I think I'm very lucky to have that, but I do wonder if my experience was still somehow diluted. It's sort of unnatural that we've come to spend so much time in high school worrying about our future. There's plenty of time for that, I've learned, in college and beyond, and I'm only a freshman. Be safe with the knowledge that you're going to get into college no matter where you go if you plan things well, if you have safeties that you can rely on, that you genuinely would go to, and that it isn't as scary as it feels and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Another thing that I would do, not just for people who are seniors right now and who are applying, is I keep on saying this, but doing what you're passionate about. It's cliche, I know, but if you do things because you're trying to check some list of boxes that other people have made for you or that you think that you should do, then you're not going to have anything to talk about. Like your resume and what you put on there matters, yes, to colleges, but what matters more is what you say about them. What you learned from them, how they shaped you as an individual uniquely. And if you have nothing to say, then those experiences will mean very, very little in the long run. So I would encourage people to break the mold and do something unique to their interests. Because college, you have to remember, is just a stepping stone to the rest of your life. It can unlock a lot of doors, yes. What I see is that people's future plans tend to stop at college, and they have this twisted notion that it's the ultimate goal, and it isn't. And if you chase what you're passionate about and you go into some sort of blessed spiral of your interests, then you set yourself apart. And then the focus isn't about college, the focus is about your future at large. I think it is more important. And this idea that if you do everything that you think you're supposed to do and what you should do because everybody else is doing it, it's also a lot harder to compete because you're like everybody else. So if you set yourself apart, chase your passions, stay involved, then it becomes less of a worry because you're more developed as an individual, not just as a college applicant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very true and something that a lot of people tend to forget, including myself. And I think I get cut off, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, in trying to make sure like they have leadership experience and they have hard classes and trying to do all of these things that they think will make a perfect college applicant. And I don't think that that's not the goal of this, to build your entire high school around one application that you're going to be submitting to a college.
Exactly.
So I know that we just talked about how that's not super important, but I think it's still kind of necessary to think about what you're going to put on your college application. So what do you suggest high schoolers do and not do to make their application stronger, that still like relies on their interest and is not simply to, the whole point of it is not just to put on an application?
Okay, we'll start with do's. Do be genuine and specific in those why blank essays when you're applying to colleges, why, like, basically when they ask you why you're applying to that school. Don't do the lame copy paste thing I know a lot of people do, where they say that they want to go to blank school and they list vague reasons. Be very, very specific. Take time to research the colleges that you apply to and why you want to attend there. I think it's important for your essays, but also important for yourself. Be honest with yourself, be honest with your stats and your resume, and prepare a list of colleges that have a solid range from safeties, targets to reaches. And you should be able to put your finger wherever on that list and say that you would genuinely go to that school. And I think researching about the school and what you like about it will help your why essays and also help you get excited no matter where you go to, and be able to enjoy and look forward to your time there. Especially because safety schools have this thing called yield protection. I know this is prevalent at UC Santa Cruz especially, and they definitely see through people who are applying to their school for the sake of having a safety. Moving on, I'm always going to say do what interests and intrigues you. Know that there isn't a checklist of things that you have to do, and that they're looking at you as an individual. And it's a lot harder to compete with other people if your resume and application looks just like theirs. Establish strong relationships with teachers because they are excellent mentors and people to talk to. And their job is literally to communicate with adolescents, and they have like that adult experience. So that is invaluable. And don't establish those relationships because you want a letter of recommendation from them. Generally don't do things because you think that you have to. Don't start a nonprofit because that you think that you have to. I know that that's like some big thing that everybody is starting, like nonprofits, and not chasing them. Do it because you want to and there's a cause that you're passionate about. Otherwise, colleges will see right through it. Do chase your passions. Don't be fluffy and cliche in your essays. have a timeline for when you're applying and spread out the deadlines for colleges. Apply early action just because it gets applications out of the way. Don't be nervous. If you invest yourself in your education and you find a trajectory for yourself, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You will get into college and it's going to be amazing and exciting, and you will be blinded by the opportunities. And most importantly, don't forget that you are in high school. That is like the biggest thing, because I keep on thinking about how much that I missed out on and how much that I didn't really appreciate until after I graduated.
I think that's a lot of really amazing advice and something that high schoolers should really take to heart. So I think just to wrap it up, I know COVID has kind of made this year really, really strange for everyone. And you're probably attending college, all your classes online. So how has that experience been for you so far? And has it been what you expected or something very different?
I think that it's definitely, being a freshman at a college is a novel experience because you are surrounded by new things, you have to adjust to new things. And I definitely feel like I've missed out on that, but I will eventually get that experience, and there is benefit that I'm not as distracted and I'm able to have a much smoother transition into my academics and the increase in rigor because I'm comfortable at home and I have my mom to help me with laundry and food and things like that. But I think it's important to be patient and know that if we just stay at home and we stay optimistic and do the best with what we can, we will eventually get to have those beginnings and the endings that we wanted that we haven't gotten so far. So I've just been trying to stay hopeful, have a schedule for every day, maintain some semblance of structure, and also thinking about the pros about staying at home, getting additional time with your family, especially because I was so busy in high school. I didn't spend that much time at home. Now I have all of this time at home and I'm really appreciating that, especially because my entire family is here now, not just my brother. So it's definitely not optimal, but I am currently happy with where things are going. And I think that professors at my school are also doing their best to make this experience smooth and still valuable for the students, even if they're talking at a computer for most of the time. So yeah, I think that's my spiel.
I think that's really important, especially like staying positive that things will look better, hopefully soon. So I think that's pretty much all we have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview and answering questions. I'm sure it'll be really helpful to high school students and people who are applying to college.
Thank you.
Okay.